What's the name of the platform or whatever? Oh, it's a Zoom.
Now I'm gonna enter, full screen, I guess. Well, actually, let me load this thing first. I'm gonna, see. Okay.
Now, did you essentially just, move a PowerPoint in there?
So my PowerPoint is open, right? So I've opened this now. It
Okay.
just opened in another page. And, in the Zoom meeting, I'm going to share, click this box, share, and it'll bring up all my things that are open. See, I have files open, I have my email open, I have a team open. So I'm gonna click the PowerPoint, it's open here.
Okay.
And this is basically what everyone's seeing right now.
Okay, they're seeing that, but they're not seeing the stuff on the side. Okay.
No. And we can, we have 5 participants already. So we have Dawn, Sasha. So I'm gonna allow Sasha to talk. I'm gonna allow Dawn to talk.
If he's watching, so.
And Tiffany, I'm not gonna allow to talk. I'm not gonna, well, she can.
Hello?
Hello.
What's this noise? Hello? Who is on so far?
This is Sasha. There seems
Hi,
to
Sasha.
be an echo.
A little bit of an echo. Are you hearing it still?
Uh-huh.
Okay, let's see if we can mitigate that a little bit. Still there? Okay, I'm just going to mute everyone for now.
Okay.
And yeah, okay. How's that now? How's the audio for everyone now? Okay. Okay, Dawn, I've only unmuted you now. Can you try to talk?
I'm here.
Okay, perfect. That sounds a lot better. Is it okay for you on your end?
Yes, I'm not getting any
Okay.
now.
Awesome. So we're just waiting for everyone to call in. I'm just going to double check on the audio on Char's end. 1 second.
Dawn, is this you?
I'm on.
Hi, this is Laura. How are you doing?
Good. How about you?
Good. We're getting ready to go. We're just doing the audio and everything. Thanks a lot for making it. Are you back at your home office?
I am.
Okay. All right. We'll be on in just a minute. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
A what?
A demo.
Of what? Which part?
Your presentation webinar. Have you done any kind of dress rehearsal
Well, I had a planning call last week,
You know what?
a planning call with
Oh.
all the speakers.
I see.
Is that what
Okay.
you mean?
Yeah, so you have like the different speakers on this.
Yeah, and I have all their bios and stuff. Yeah, that's why we're doing an hour and a half, because we have someone from Fort Collins and Arapahoe County and Denver and Boulder and Northeast Colorado.
Okay. Should have called and sent the, letter yesterday.
I know, it would have been, well,
I should have thought of it, I'm sorry. You had a pretty full plate, and I just spaced it.
did you ever was it ever in the newsletter?
No. No, I haven't. Yeah, this was a little off the grid, probably should have been in the grid.
Yeah, that's why I've been announcing it the last 3 steps.
Yeah.
Just to make sure everyone knew, but,
No, it didn't even go in constant contact.
Okay. So can you make sure all our speakers are hooked up then?
Sorry.
So we have Dawn and Sasha and,
Hi, everyone. This is Durania from CCLP. I just want to make sure that all of our panelists are all hooked up. So if Dawn, Sasha, it looks like, and Marcy are all logged in. So if you don't mind just briefly just saying hi so I can hear you.
Hi, this is Dawn.
Hi, Dawn. And Sasha and Marcy.
This is Marcy.
Hi, Marcy.
Hi.
So it sounds like once you say hi, then you're just going to have to mute yourself back again to make sure the feedback isn't too bad. So I can do that manually, or if you guys can just remember to do that, that'd be great. So we've heard from Marcy and Dawn, and then Sasha, do you mind checking in real quick?
This is,
so is that feedback?
Yeah, I don't know what's up with that. So Sasha, it sounds like you have a little bit of feedback. Are you using your computer audio or your phone? Because sometimes the phone works a lot better with when you're calling in. And for everyone who's already joined us, we're just getting some audio issues straightened out, but we'll be starting in a few minutes.
you see Ken on there?
Not yet, no. And Sasha, just let us know when you've called in with your phone.
Ken's having laptop issues.
Okay. Oh, here he is. Here's Ken.
I am calling on my phone.
Sasha, it still sounds like there's a pretty good amount of feedback on your end. I'm not sure why the other panelists seem all right. Hi, Ken, is that you?
That is. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you great. Thank you.
Perfect. Great.
All right, thanks.
Sorry, I had computer issues and I deeply
No
apologize.
worries at all. You're good. So I think Sasha might have X'd out and she's going to try to call back in. But we have Ken, Dawn, and Marcy. Do you want to start introductions, Laura? Okay. So hi, everyone. Welcome to Overcoming Job Challenges Across Colorado. This is a webinar hosted by Laura Ware from CCLP, and I'm Durrani. I'm going to be doing the technology today. So we are going to be doing some introductions of our panelists, and if you do have a question during the webinar, please do note that in the chat box, and we will answer you. And if you want to remain anonymous, please say that in the chat box, and if you'd like your name or organization to be mentioned, please note that as well. And without further ado, I'll hand it over to Laura to kind of walk through our panelists.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being on the call, and we really appreciate having you. Just wanted to do 1 minute of introduction about the topic. We came up with this webinar topic based on a lot of information gathering and interviews that have been going on from myself and others at CCLP, which stands for Colorado Center on Law and Policy, for the last couple of years. And what we really hope to focus on with our panelists today is 4 questions that really relate to supporting job seekers and people who are hoping to prepare for job seeking and who also have diverse job challenges. And we have really a great selection of panelists representing different parts of the state. So the first speaker that we're going to have, not in this particular order, but just to introduce them, is Marcy Kassner. She's the manager of the SNAP ENT, which, just to kind of train myself not to use acronyms today, is Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, Employment and Training Program, Veteran Services Office, and Workforce Connections Team in Larimer County. And she works in the Economic and Workforce Development Department. And as you can hopefully see, her a little bit more information about Marcy is on the website. The second person that we have joining us today is Ken Ariano Jr., and he's the employment liaison for Denver Economic Development and Opportunity, and he is really involved with the Greater Denver Metro Healthcare Partnership as the workforce liaison and the co-chair of Denver's Road Home Employment Subcommittee. It's great to have both of these individuals from different parts of the state. So the third person that we have is Sasha Easton, and she is the workforce administrator down in Arapahoe County and Douglas County, and their workforce system is called AD Works, and she has been involved with public interest for over 10 years, and 8 of those have been involved with workforce development. So it's really great to have Sasha present. The next person that we have joining us is Dawn Robards. She's the regional director of the Eastern Workforce Sub-Area, which encompasses a huge amount of territory. So I'll let her talk about that a little bit, because when I first started talking to Dawn, it was like I couldn't believe how much of the state was covered in her workforce area. But she's been involved in workforce for quite a while and is going to be a great addition as well to this panel. And then lastly, we're going to have Erin Jones. She's going to join us a bit later. She's the executive director at the Workforce Boulder County, and she has been involved for over 15 years in Boulder County and leads the different teams that focus on business and job seeker services. So as I mentioned, she's going to join us a bit later. And some of you may have seen that Pueblo was potentially going to be involved, but they were unable to make it due to some schedule conflicts and other issues. So we have these 5 panelists, and it will be really amazing to hear how different everything is depending on the different region. So we're going to start with the questions, and I'm going to ask the panelists to kind of jump in as they have an answer that fits the question. I'm going to try not to call on people, although if there's something that we need to kind of understand a little bit better, we might ask a follow-up question. And each panelist is going to present a little bit on the 4 questions, and you can see them now. We're going to start with the first question. So the first question is really going to be focused on providing job-seeking services and support to people with significant employment challenges. So the way we'd like to phrase this is what you think your region does well in the context of providing support and services to people with significant challenges, and what you all would like to be able to improve upon in the future. And really want to kind of contextualize this, that people with challenges may include people with lived experience of homelessness, justice involvement, living with disabilities, and including mental and behavioral health issues, veteran challenges, youth and young adults, as well as people over the age of 55 and TANF and SNAP recipients. So we're really looking at how people with challenges have different needs, different life needs, but also perhaps different employment goals or different timeframes that they're working within. So is anyone on the panel willing to kind of answer this question first? And if you do, will you please say your name so that the audience knows who's speaking?
This is Dawn Robards in Eastern, and you know, I think especially coming from a rural area, and I cover the 10 counties in Northeast Colorado. So footprint-wise, we're 21% of the state. I haven't even added up the population, just because I think that might feel a little defeating, because we are a lower population out here. We sit primarily around a 2% unemployment rate right now, which being predominantly ag, but we sit at basically a 0 unemployment rate with the changes on how that's factored in. You know, I think one thing that we do really well, and I've came from a county system actually with AD Works class, and then came out to a rural area. And it's a different level of resource sharing in collaboration with community partners. Traditionally in the rural communities, just because there are fewer resources in numbers as well as amounts of funding and things like that. So I think our team and our community network is great about leveraging those resources. One of the things that we would like to do better, I think right now, is our business engagement piece. And really shifting, making that final shift from being a job seeker-based organization into more of a business professional-based organization. And so we're in the middle of that evolution internally.
Dawn, this is Laura. Could you just kind of expand a little bit on that last part you said in terms of how you are looking to expand the business component?
Definitely. And most of our workforce areas statewide have really made that shift solidly. And I think for whatever reason, Eastern's just kind of lagging behind. You know, when you serve the job seekers, and hopefully you serve a few businesses in there. But primarily the workforce system is shifted that focus into a business environment. So business should be the primary customer in order for us to be most effective. Because if you serve business, then you are in fact creating the opportunities for the job seekers. So for our system, we're having folks become dedicated business outreach. My team is tasked with bringing employers in and having, especially in our 2 larger offices, which are Logan and Morgan County, having at least 2 employers on-site hiring every week. Which, you know, when you come from an urban environment, those don't sound like huge numbers. For out here, it certainly does. For my 10 counties, we serve probably about, last year it dipped a little bit lower because we have less job seekers coming in the door, but right around 3,000 job seekers. We have 12 frontline staff doing that in 6 offices and do outreach to the remaining 4 to cover our 10 counties. So when we talk about kind of our evolution and things like that, we have a system right now that's fairly under-resourced. I think all of my workforce partners would probably say the same thing. So it's different to kind of shift on a dime, just because you still have all these other factors and unfunded mandates and things like that that you need to factor into your daily business. So does that help, Laura?
Very much, and I think it's important to note what you said, and then we'll move on to someone else, is that I think you staff 6 offices spread out across 20% of the state, right?
That's correct, and right now 3 of my 6 offices are single staff offices, so there's only one person delivering services within that county.
Thank you. How about someone else? Would one of the other panelists be able to speak to this issue? Marcy, would you be able to speak to this one?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. A bit like what Don was just talking about, I think what our region does really well is collaboration. More recently and specifically, we have been involved with the United Way Community Impact Work Groups, and it's called Working Families Thrive. And these are often families that are addressing some of these challenges or barriers that you've already mentioned, Laura. And for the first time last year, we were able to secure a grant through that community impact program for general job seekers who are funded through a program called Wagner-Pizer Services, where there are no supportive services for those folks. So they will show up at the workforce center and ask for a bus pass perhaps, or a place that they could get their done with a voucher. And because of our involvement with the United Way and the other members of that community impact, we were able to secure the grant to actually do that. And this year we got additional funds from that same community impact work group.
So that what has that allowed you to do that you couldn't do before? Kind of very briefly.
Yeah, the Wagner-Pizer funding that helps staff a workforce center to work with the general job seekers that come in to serve us or to work with us, they do not have any supportive services available typically. And so that was always a population that we could help them with their resumes. We could help them with, making copies, getting online, those kinds of things. But we were very limited, if having any money at all, to offer them for basically gas money to get to an interview, or if they got a job but they didn't know how they were going to make it back and forth until they got their first paycheck. We had no way to help them before.
Well, that's great. And then, so what's something that you in Larimer County are trying to look to do better in the future?
Well, I would say certainly more collaboration, but one of the things that I think my supervisor and I, when we've gone around to meetings and been involved with other groups that are concerned with this population, the one thing that we notice time and time again is we don't see businesses often at the table with us. And that's where I hope that we can make some inroads and have more businesses that are coming to some of these community platforms where we discuss people with barriers and how to help them re-enter the workforce.
All right, that sounds great. Thank you so much, Marcy. Sasha or Ken, would you like to try and present kind of some of the things that you're doing in your region well as it relates to people with significant employment challenges?
I'm more than happy to. This is Ken Ariano again with the City and County of Denver. And so what we have done is very similar to both what Don and Marcy have done, but we've also created a subcommittee from Denver's Road Home. It's called the Denver's Road Home Employment Subcommittee. What we've done in that subcommittee has started in 2006. And so over the last 10 years, what we've done is created and built upon kind of the platform of serving the special populations, which again would include veterans, homeless, transgender, LGBTQ, anybody receiving public assistance. So what we do with that subcommittee is we meet monthly. And the format of that is we have an employer, a community-based organization who hosts us, and then we have a networking opportunity. And what we've learned from the community is it was a great way to bring both new people to their organization and new to perhaps the social service background, or new with the social service background, or new to the industry of helping special populations. It was a way for them to understand what resources are available, as well as direct connection to employers. And so when we bring an employer in, we have some standard questions that we ask them, and then provide that opportunity for the community-based organizations or partner agencies to connect with both the organization or employer and then the community-based partner.
Just one sample question, what kind of questions do you ask the employers in order to create a connection between the employer and the benefits or the positive aspects of hiring people who have employment challenges?
Well, the direct connection is, what our population is having a difficult time is when they say, go apply on the website. And so what we try to do is create that relationship and build upon those relationships. So if somebody does apply to Amazon, for example, when they don't have any work history, that we know we can go to Braylin and say, Braylin, Ken has applied to this position, so that they can look for the application, pull it out, or have that direct connection to, we will set up an interview or a meeting with that recruiter, so that, again, the individual doesn't feel like they're lost in the system or kind of get, go to a resume, or upload the resume, apply for the position, and then they don't hear anything. So again, building those relationships with those recruiters or employers really make the candidates feel at least a little more they don't get lost in the process. And as far as, what are some of the questions they ask, again, is we want to know if they are felon friendly, what are perhaps the ideal candidates they're looking for, and really creating the relationship, so that if they're reaching out to, which we've had in the past, they find a candidate through the interview process. Unfortunately, a phone gets disconnected because they're not able to pay for that phone bill. We're able to reach back out to the case manager. The employer's be able to reach out to the case manager and say, I'm really interested in hiring Susie Q. We're not able to get in touch with her. Can you help us out? And that's where, because the case manager has that relationship and usually is meeting with the individual on a regular basis, they're able to kind of keep that connection with the employer.
So and just if you can answer really briefly, but what is the one thing right now that you aspire as a workforce system to do better serving this population?
I would definitely say is connect more regionally. I think we in Denver do a really good job, with our community partners within Denver. But because of our population so transient, how do we kind of connect and be better partners regionally? So when, again, Susie Q is moving because she's homeless, or she's on TANF and in Denver County, and she's received housing in Adams through her Section 8 or through a housing program, is better connection within regionally.
That's great. Really good point for this conversation. So Sasha Easton, is she going to be able to? Oh.
Hello.
Hi, Sasha.
Hi, Sasha. We're doing a little bit of a fix here, so hopefully this will work. Hold on one second. Thank you, Sasha. Okay, ready.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sasha Easton, and I'm with Arapahoe Douglas Works Workforce Center. And, I just, in thinking of what else I could add to already the great comments that my colleagues have supplied, but I think at Arapahoe Douglas Works, a couple of things that we've tried to implement is we do have subject matter experts that are frontline staff that work with various priority populations. So, for example, we have an individual that only case manages homeless populations, predominantly TANF families that are homeless, and she's fully integrated at the Aurora at Home location and is housed there part of her time. And she's very well versed in what resources are available within Arapahoe and Douglas counties to best serve our customers, and is our point person for staffing various issues. We also have staff that are subject matter experts on working with individuals with disabilities and individuals with that have some type of offender background or justice involved, and are housed either at the jail or at Department of Corrections, and have those resources within the community to offer those wraparound supports for those customers, and are able to staff cases with our other staff within our agency. And I think one of the exciting initiatives Arapahoe Douglas Works will be a part of is we will be co-located at the new Oxford Vistas location. It's located in Aurora at the old Youth Excelsior campus, and it's going to be a long-term housing facility, primarily for low-income families that are needing shelter for up to 9 months. And it's going to be a really wraparound service model. Arapahoe Douglas Works will be there providing job search, job retention, career services to not only the residents that are staying at the facility, but the surrounding community. There also will be mental health professionals there. They will eventually have child care on site, as well as a full housing facility with social workers, connections to human services, and the various programs that human services offers. So that's a really exciting initiative because we don't have a lot of long-term homeless shelter options available in our region. So we're excited to be a part of that project as well.
So thank you, Sasha. I have a follow-up question. I was curious. I mean, one of the things that you and I talked about is the wonderful partnership that you were just discussing in terms of working with the housing and therefore kind of that wraparound. But can you talk a little bit, and could the other speakers, when we go to the next question, just add this to their answer of how, because I think a lot of listeners would be really interested in how you make your services accessible. And I don't mean just physically accessible like with ramps and elevators, but I mean for homeless people or people who have been justice involved, how to make them appealing, welcoming, really somewhere where someone feels comfortable going. So could you speak to that just for just a little bit, and then we'll ask the others to address that in the next question also. Thank you.
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think, one of the things we really try to impart on our staff is building that rapport as much as possible. So I think that starts from the very first interaction. So employing those active listening skills, showing empathy for that individual situation, trying to understand what type of issues that individual might be experiencing to really best serve them, and not being afraid to come back to us and staff those cases or staff those situations so we can provide the best resources and best connections to partners within the community. I think that's really important just in that communication style and that first engagement. I also think we do meet with our customers where they're at. So if they're not able to come to the workforce center, we will meet them at a neutral location in the community to remove that transportation barrier, that barrier to come to us. Or sometimes our customers will have a stigma of coming to a government agency. So if they feel more comfortable at a coffee shop or a restaurant, we will make that available library. And then also we try to be co-located with our partners whenever feasible. And so, as I mentioned, we do have staff that work out of the parole offices in our region. We have staff that work out of Douglas County Jail. We have staff in community organizations such as Aurora at Home. So we try to have multiple access points in terms of various locations. And being able to provide supportive services to individuals that might not be able to access our facility. Transportation is a huge issue in Douglas County. They don't really have a lot of public transportation. So again, that's where meeting them where they're at, it becomes very much very important. And I think just building that relationship from day one is important.
Thank you so much. I think just to, so we'll move to the next question, which is on your screen. And some of the speakers already kind of started asking this, but answering, excuse me. But I really want to kind of dig a little deeper, and I really encourage the audience to ask questions that are of interest to you and your specific populations or your organizations or the work you do, whether it's working with people with mental illness or people who are young adults who've never worked before, or people who have are living in halfway houses just having been incarcerated. I believe that those are all populations where challenges abound. And I can just speak from hearing a lot of people over the years that coming to a government location may or may not be workable for a variety of reasons. I can tell you one workforce center that's not on the panel, but they go out and meet with different people, for example, at a YMCA where there's a local Zumba class once a week. So if you have innovations that you've been practicing, that would be fun to hear about also. So this question is, what are the specific reasons for your positive accomplishments? And then what are the challenges that you really haven't, that you're kind of flummoxed, or that's an old-fashioned word, but you're kind of perplexed about how to overcome the problem. And resources, we understand, are a big part of that, but kind of some of it may be an innovation issue too, because I think the more we can share with each other, the better. And if you can talk about different county funds or whatever, and really kind of be aware that the audience is diverse in terms of being public agencies as well as direct service providers. So any innovations you've found that could relate to people who are directly serving clients would be really well received as well. So who would like to jump in on that one? Dawn, would you be willing to start again, or Ken?
That would be fine. I'm always nervous about talking over somebody else, so I tend to kind of shy back a little bit.
I know. I do the same.
You know, I think, and you know, my brain started going as you were asking the question, so I may have gone off on my own rabbit hole during that. But, you know, one of the things that we struggle with out here is we have, especially around homelessness, we have a very, most people would say it's a very invisible homelessness problem. There's not the huge concentrations of, you know, people out in the park or things like that. It's a lot of times it's couch surfing at friends' houses, or, you know, but we do have a very transitional population in there that may have a roof over their head, but it's not theirs, and it's very, very temporary. We did have a homeless shelter out here at one point, and then it closed. So there's really not a whole lot. There's one warming center here in Morgan County, and I believe Logan County was looking at doing the same thing, because those two counties kind of have our larger population out of the 10. But, you know, I think it's really unfortunate, because we've had a lot of homeless folks come into the offices. They can certainly, you know, we can certainly refer them out within the community, food banks, those type of things. We've worked with our, like our human service partners to have like try to get like a common intake form, or a better referral process down to where we're getting the pertinent information from that customer once, because it's very unmotivated and defeating that every time. It's like when you call a company and you're telling them, okay, well, this is what I need, and they transfer you to somebody else, but none of that information transfers with you. And pretty soon you're 5 people into that phone conversation, and you've told your story 5 different times and getting transferred again. So we try to be very upfront, get the information, and really then be their advocate out in the community. You know, we've kind of heard anecdotally that especially our homeless population really like to make their way down I-76 or towards Denver on 70 because of the concentration of services. And especially when they have somebody that is within that population that possibly could have some mental health issues, chemical dependency issues, something that would put them on the radar of local law enforcement. A lot of time that gets some of us to get into Denver. And so we're not really doing, to me, a very good job. And not all rural communities are like that. But we seem to be shifting that need and just kind of moving them down to where their services are more concentrated. So I think that could be a huge undertaking for us to try to figure out what to do here differently and reestablish shelters and things like that. So did that get the question, or did I go total rabbit hole?
No, it was great. And one thing I just want to say as just to repeat it, because I think it's a really important point, is that serving as the advocate rather than sending someone from point A to point B to point C, where they have to not only retell their story, but also probably reapply or fill out more paperwork. I really appreciate the respectfulness that shows for someone who is transient and really just wanting to get an immediate need met. I think, just to kind of facilitate moving forward, Marcy or Ken, would you be willing to comment on this part too, the specific reasons for your accomplishments, and really focus on some of the challenges, because I think the spirit is also, how are we all challenged to be respectfully meeting the needs of our folks all the time and trying to innovate all the time? So Marcy or Ken, would one of you be willing to go next?
I'm more than happy to. This is Ken. So what the specific reasons? So we've been really deliberate with Denver's Road Home Employment Subcommittee. What we found is when we brought people together, housing and jobs were you can't have one without the other. So Denver's Road Home, they created a housing and employment subcommittee, and then we took the employment piece. So it was great in the sense of we separated the two issues while still understanding that they are one. You can't have one without the other, because what was happening is our meetings were kind of being most of the discussion was about housing, and so we removed that piece where we were able to connect employers to community-based organizations and partners right away. So that was one of the really big reasons that we were able to increase our membership, and then also hearing from members. And then also changing, because that's, I think, the other thing is, for the longest time, we held our meeting where we had community partners and then did the around the room introductions, and that's it. So really kind of pivoting and looking at how we're holding meetings, and then also listening to what the members needed, which was they wanted an opportunity to network. So we really kind of looked at how we held the meetings, and then kept the time the same, but we eliminated one employer partner. So we have just one employer partner, one resource, and then the opportunity to allow for networking, as well as kind of holding these meetings throughout the Denver metro area, so that community-based partners can see kind of what services each individual offers, what programs they offer. The challenge that we're having is really on the employer piece, is that livable wage. Unfortunately, because of the stigma with our population, in these special populations, they are on the lower end of in the entry level for positions. So really discussing with employers, when they say, well, we're having a hard time in the retention phase, is to say, well, have we looked, and providing that labor market information, but really have you looked at perhaps bringing up that wage, which, Amazon was one of them. And so that's why they went from that 12 to 15. And then also looking at and hosting employer partnerships and saying, okay, when you're looking at, the application, do you have a background? We held some employer trainings, and what we were very proud to announce is Array Sportswear removed that box of, do you have a background, because it really didn't pertain to the position they had. But really, to go back to what the challenge is really the employers and providing and offering a livable wage in Denver.
Thank you. That's great. Marcy, what are your thoughts about this? Specific reasons for your accomplishments as well as the challenges. Fort Collins is a kind of different place for sure than the Metro Denver area specifically.
Yeah, so one of the things that we've been working on for a while now has been what we're calling an online job seeker platform. And what that allows any job seeker to do is have 24/7 access to basically creating from beginning, hopefully, to connecting with employers such as hiring events or internships that we have, work-based learning opportunities. Basically, they start on an online platform and they just kind of work through different steps that we've created that help them develop their job seeking skills. They can take assessments online, they can build a resume off of our platform. And there was some concern initially around populations who are experiencing poverty being able to access this because of needing a computer. But what we discovered when we did a survey during one of our Toys for Tots here at the office, where folks came in to get a toy for one of their kiddos, they filled out a survey for us, and what we discovered was 90% of our TANF families had smartphones accessible to them. The downside and the struggle that I see right now is that our SNAP ENT population often does not have that technology available to them. And so when we try to work through the Lifeline program to get that for them, that's become a challenge in our community. But we like the idea of people having 24/7 access, and at any point along the way, they can select a button on the platform that lets us know the next morning when we log in that they want to speak to somebody.
So is there just a kind of a simple answer? Is there a specific remedy that you all are moving towards for SNAP people so that they can use this portal and this platform that you just described?
Well, right now it's accessing us, through the resource lab here. Of course, at the libraries, we have a very robust partnerships with the libraries, doing workshops at evenings and weekends, and doing walk-in services at the libraries. So we certainly direct people that way, but it's really a big challenge because what we're talking about is asking to get a Lifeline program, again, that it has excellent customer service and provides smart cell phones instead of just regular cell phones. And that's a challenge.
Cool. So Sasha, do you want to kind of speak to this issue also, the reasons for your accomplishments and then the challenges? And I'll add another aspect to that. And again, I encourage people to write questions so we can kind of catch them as we go. But if you have challenges that you're working to overcome, current specific efforts. And I'm going to keep advocating about like technology, because totally single adults I can speak to for sure have a challenge with technology when their resource center is not open, like on the weekends and stuff. So anything that people are being innovative with would be great to hear about.
Yeah, so I think at Arapahoe Douglas Works, one of the things that we're very fortunate to have is we do have a lot of various programs on site, so that minimizes the impact to the customer. For example, we have all of our workforce development activities on site, so you could access Wagner Pizer, so just those career services, getting assistance with resume and interviewing, and one-on-one labor market analysis, counseling, those types of things. But then we also have access to the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act programming, as well as we do partner with Arapahoe County and Douglas County Human Services to provide job search and job retention and workforce development activities to TANF participants, employment first or food assistance participants, and we have a program specific to non-custodial and custodial child support parents to help them increase their livable wage so that they're able to get caught up on child support payments, be in good standing with the courts. We also have the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation and Job Corps co-located at our locations, and then soon we will have Continuum of Colorado. They're an entity that works with individuals with developmental disabilities co-located at our location. So we really try to be a one-stop shop for as many of our customers as possible. So when they do come here, they have access to a multitude of programs. And then I know, Laura, you mentioned technology specifically. We are piloting collaborating with our IT department to build an electronic system. And then right now it's more on the back end of things, internal workflow and management. But the long-term vision with that is that we will be able to make services available to customers remotely for those that have access to a computer or mobile phone. And then also, we do utilize a texting feature for most of our programs. So we currently are using Contact Wireless, which allows us to text our customers as well, which has been an added resource for many of our customers as that their preferred communication. So we are trying to explore other ways to make our workshops and things available remotely, but there's definitely more work from our perspective to do in that area.
Thank you. And I know, Dawn, just speaking on your behalf, just based on what I've heard you and others in the rural community say, broadband access, technology, cell phone access, is a constant challenge for you all to not only communicate with people, but to provide high-tech services that a lot of people enjoy without thinking about it. I've heard that from the state and Clark Becker, who's the Rural Consortium Director, and then you and all the other rural areas. Would you agree with that or have anything to add?
No, I would completely agree. You know, we have even difficulty within our offices being able to navigate, you know, take part in webinars because our speeds in some of our areas are so low that we just constantly buffer. So even on a staff development aspect, we have difficulty with that. I would say, and also in addition, in a lot of rural communities, there's not a bus service. You know, there's very few transportation options, which just kind of compounds, you know, right. They can't get to where they can have accessibility, then it just makes the broadband issue even worse.
So two questions that have come in that I wanted to get that are in this section. One is from Shar Robert at Colorado Center on Law and Policy. And this is a specific thing about career development. So her question is, Colorado is known for its work on career pathways and sector partnerships. So the question is, do people with specific challenges get direct access to these opportunities? And please give specific examples and really kind of thinking about what partnerships are the most accessible to people with challenges, including individuals who have justice involvement or offender histories. Would anyone like to answer that?
This is Ken. I can start the conversation again. So yes, the answer is yes. We have a couple of registered apprenticeships in the Denver metro area. We have some in healthcare, one in hospitality, one in advanced manufacturing. And what we do is we partner with our community-based organizations and our community partners and partner agencies. For example, Employment First, so the SNAP program they had a candidate who was with one of our community-based organizations, Cross Purpose. So what we started to see is that they were referring us candidates to our information sessions. And so we started to do information and reach out to those specific organizations. What we're starting to learn, and this is brand new for us, in the sense of reaching out to those organizations specifically, is we have had people that ended up securing employment and getting into the apprenticeship and then pulling out right before they're ready to start. Or one issue I'm having right now is I have a young lady who has now decided to quit the program. So we're now coming up with kind of next steps of how do we kind of ensure that we have all of the barriers or the expectations set up front so that we can have success within the registered apprenticeship programs. So yes, we're reaching out to them. Yes, we're having people get in, but now we're starting to see people start, either they're not beginning or they're quitting, and we're trying to figure out what that specific reason is. But I would definitely say we need to stay connected to those community-based organizations, because we, both as workforce, can't provide all of those wraparound services. And by partnering with another agency, we're able to braid some of the funding as well as offer some support in providing those wraparound services that are needed.
So does any other region want to speak to sector partnerships that have been successful for any of your participants who have significant challenges?
This is Dawn in Eastern. We have in Region 5, which is my I-70 corridor. It's in the Elbert County, Lincoln County, Kit Carson, and Cheyenne. We had funding available for tuition assistance and supportive services in the healthcare arena. And we've started, especially for CNA, and taking a look at a career pathway. We did a lot of exposure to students, starting with the 8th grade in healthcare careers and creating an awareness of what's available in their community, but also taking a look at establishing, I think we had about 25, 26 folks go in and become certified as a CNA, and many of those have moved on to a higher level of training within the nursing programs. We have Morgan Community College out here for that corridor. And Northeastern Junior College on our upper side as well. Both have very, very strong nursing programs. So we've been able to do that. The other sector partnership that we have in our upper 6 counties is in manufacturing. So NECOM, Northeast Colorado Manufacturers, they've developed their own website. They do business after hours, community tours. They take part in a career exploration camp usually every summer that we have out of our Fort Morgan location. And so they have been great, where it's not specifically paying for training for folks to go in. We're really talking about what's involved in the manufacturing industry, and really the depth and breadth of that, especially in rural communities, because a lot will fit in from manufacturing. And it's a lot of what we do, because it's not storefront, it's somewhat invisible in the communities, where there's a lot of product leaving our communities through mail and or transportation. And so if they don't have a storefront, people aren't going to realize that that's what some of these do. So we've utilized those sector partnerships with a very strong emphasis in educating our students on local opportunities. And because we do struggle with retaining kids after high school.
That's great, thank you. So another 2 clarifications I want to mention, because Employment First is, for most of you probably know, it's the SNAP program, but it also is a very significant, it's also the name of a disability program here in Colorado. So I just want to make sure that everyone understands that there's 2 Employment Firsts in Colorado. The one for people with disabilities is actually a national name. And so It's just a friendly suggestion. When people are talking about employment first, it's usually helpful to clarify which one they're talking about, because it's a double name, and if you circulate between a lot of different systems, you may get confused every once in a while. So let's go on to the next question. So what do you need in addition to funding? Because more funding is obviously needed in the sense of not only do we always need more funding, but also funding has been going down, which is a little bit cause for great concern for everyone. But what do you need in addition to funding to do your work and to really be most effective with this group of job seekers? So the things that some things that may be relevant to this is coordinated communication, cross-systems communication and integration, meaning not only meetings, but really understand the different eligibility criteria and the ways that those need to be looked at and considered in order to best serve someone, figuring out how the wraparound services can be used in the most efficient manner. I know a lot of counties have accessed different funds that'll give them much more flexibility. And then a group that hasn't been mentioned here, but it's a really important one, is the continuums of care that serve homeless people. That's the main system for people with homelessness. So what are some of the ways that you feel you need additional resources or time or anything else in order to be effective? Who would like to start?
Hi, this is Sasha. I could start the conversation. So I think that one of the important things for us is ensuring that I think one of the barriers our staff encounter the most with serving any priority populations is dealing with mental health issues. And so a lot of our staff don't have that counseling background. So what are the resources available in the community and trainings available? So I think that's an opportunity for us as a system to work together. And I know Ken mentioned regionalism earlier, but how can we work together to not duplicate services so we could offer that job search, workforce development aspect, but how can we partner with other organizations to help upskill our staff on that mental health aspect, and what could we offer you in return? And I think it's just leveraging on the strengths of the organization and partnering, so that because at the end of the day we're just really serving the same customer base, and we all have the same goals and want them to be successful in their journey. So I think one of the biggest barriers that our agency finds in serving any priority population is dealing with mental health or those issues that we can't address internally. So I think that collaborative partnership approach and ensuring, we provide, the services that we do well, and how can we promote your organization and learn from your organization just the same, and do mutual cross trainings, mutual staffings, kind of staff networking opportunities. I think the more we could learn from each other, just the better the system will get.
Thank you, Sasha. Mental health, and just to clarify, because I know this has come up in some of the things I've heard from people. When you think about mental health, are you specifically saying training for staff so they can best serve the person, and not only to get the mental health support, but let's say present career options in the trauma-informed way? Or are you all tackling it in both directions? Or are you kind of looking more at helping someone get their mental health supports as well as then pursue employment? Do you kind of separate them, or are they kind of together?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I when I was referencing it, I think that mental health is such a broad term, and I agree that where I was kind of referencing is getting support for our staff to know what is that way to connect participants to those organizations and resources within the community, because that's not something we currently offer. And, you know, what are the barriers that might inhibit them accessing that care? And then also what a lot of times we'll find is maybe there might be some underlying mental health issues going on, but, you know, how to delicately broach that subject if it's not something that's brought up, but maybe there's some signs there, and the staff want to help support that individual through that particular circumstance or whatever they might be dealing with at that given time. In terms of supporting individuals with a mental health pathway, that's definitely something that we do, and we, you know, our processes kind of look at the individual skill sets and experience and the labor market health of that occupation. So that's something I feel is something we're doing well. I think an opportunity for us is leveraging the knowledge base and services and resources of our sister organizations within the community to learn from one another and provide services in ways that are unique and special to each organization.
Thank you so much. Would someone else be willing to tackle this question? In addition to funding, what do you believe is needed in your region to be most effective with the job seeker? And if you can speak to helping the job seeker themselves more than communication between the providers, based on what you hear from the providers, that would be really interesting, I think, to hear. And anything that you feel would be valuable for the listening audience to hear.
So this is Marcy in Larimer, and yeah, so one of the things that we have seen tremendous value in for job seekers has been our work-based learning, and in particular in Larimer County, the internships, and they're paid. And we always pay above the minimum wage because we want to give them an opportunity to get an internship that is something maybe above and beyond what they would normally get on their own. So having said that, what we have tried to do is work very closely. We have a very excellent partnership with our local division of Voc Rehab. And what we've tried to do is work with them in particular to help particularly some of the youth in our area that are struggling getting an internship and are also folks being served by DVR. The problem comes down to the funding structures between our organizations. So the funding is there, but the way the funding is set up presents quite a challenge that we can't seem to overcome. So we have this great idea, we have this great partnership, but because the way the funding comes down from the federal government, we just can't seem to break that barrier.
So is that a eligibility challenge, or is it one about timeframes, or what is it more kind of specifically?
I can be very specific about it. So we have staff who would be able to place these youth in internships and then follow those youth along, you know, doing the evaluation like we would any other internship. But the problem is what the pay structure would be from DVR is set up that we'd be more like a vendor. And unfortunately, that charge is not enough to cover our basic staffing needs. So we've gone to, you know, talk at different levels throughout the, you know, the CDLE and DVR, which is under Colorado Department of Labor and Employment. But it's just the way that the money comes down that we can't do what we need to do with the vendor fee. That's just not enough. So, but the money's there, but you know, so that's been the issue is really looking at the two different funding structures and trying to work around those. And that's just become a challenge. No,
it makes sense. In addition to funding, would you add anything, Marcy, up in Larimer County that would help to be more effective? Like, do you guys have broad-based convenings where everyone talks to each other, or where employers and providers talk, not just job fairs, but actually problem solve together, or anything like that?
Yeah, we've been to numbers of those kinds of, community work groups, particularly as the homeless issue up here has become more prevalent, and it's, made the news. The lockers have been the more recent discussion in our area, allowing homeless folks to have some lockers in the Old Town area. And it just, for me, and this is me personally, it would, I would really appreciate and value having more businesses and employers coming there presenting ideas of support and help. And yeah, I think I'll end there.
So one thing that would really be helpful is getting more employers to be involved in solving the problem, not just frustrated with the problem.
Exactly.
Okay. Anyone else? Dawn, do you have anything to add to this about what would be most effective with, in addition to money? You've already mentioned transportation and broadband and tech and cell phones. Are there other things that you need as a region to be more effective?
I think the only thing I can really add to it, and it's our outcomes, our goals for outcomes are federally based. And we run right now for our Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act adult program. We're sitting roughly at 84% with a significant barrier population. These are folks that will be on caseloads for quite a bit. You're talking more intensive case management, more wraparound services, more frequent contact, just to kind of keep them going, and understanding that we're trying to, in a way, with that program, try to be a little piece of everything to those folks coming in the door, whether we're accessing services or we're trying to provide it in-house. And I don't think that the performance objectives that are on that for us are very effective. They're kind of daunting, just because we're not going to get replacement wages out of this population. And as our system moves closer and closer to, being a system that addresses a lot of these, I heard Sasha say it as well, priority populations in the federal law, it's hard to serve, which we don't like that term. But these are folks that are going to need more services. Not always are those services available in local communities, which kind of brings in the accessibility issue that I've kind of already talked about. But really taking a look at those performance outcomes, and especially when performance, if you miss that, over a period of time, you could be looking at sanctions into your program. And that makes what we do in some of these communities harder. So I would say probably just performance measures is something that, is a deterrent to getting the most effective services out there.
So I think just to make sure that everyone could understand kind of that issue, because it makes total sense. And I think it's true in most systems, actually, just the whole performance indicators, whether it's through Department of Labor or folk rehab, or I know there's some folks on the call that work under SNAP or work under Department of Human Services or work under Continuum of Care. So really thinking about how the performance indicators may or may not be reasonable based on influences that are in your particular region. Is that also what you're saying, Dawn?
Definitely.
Okay.
And, opportunities different regardless of where you're at, even in metro communities. And there's, kind of holding to one performance outcome that everybody's measured to. And I know our workforce development programs at the state does a great job of going through and doing performance negotiation and things like that. But really, it's not going to be overly, it's not going to be set up to fully address some of those issues, just because there's not as much wiggle room within the federal measures as we would need to do that.
Thank you. So we have Erin Jones joining us. Erin, are you mobile right now? Is that where you are? Okay, so I'm gonna ask you to speak about. I know that you're kind of catching up, but I think where we're at right now is a really important question, and that is, what do you need in addition to funding in Boulder County, to be most effective with job seekers who experience significant challenges? And if you can talk pretty loud, then we'll try and get you to the audience.
Okay, can you say the question one more time? Sorry.
No problem. What do you need in addition to funding to be most effective with job seekers? So we all know money is important, but what else do you need in Boulder County?
So I think what's important beyond funding is strong partnerships across nonprofits, education, economic development, workforce development, so that we can actually leverage our services to wrap around clients most in need. And that, I think it would be beneficial if that were strategically organized in a way, and that might involve technology tools, ways of communicating across our different sectors when we're serving the same communities. So I think funding is important, but I also think developing partnerships that support the client from a variety of different angles in the way in which the clients or the job seekers don't feel like they have to move from within one system to another system, but that the systems that we work in actually adapt to the needs of the client and meet them where they're at and make it less cumbersome for them. So I think that's important. I think it's a system change kind of thinking. I think it is the heart of the legislation that's connected to WIOA, that we're all working together. But I think there's room for growth for sure in that area.
Thank you, Erin. I think you brought up a really great point, as did a couple other of the guests, and that is to have the system come to the person whenever possible, or to provide the service where the person's at, rather than have the person run around all day long. Is that basically kind of summarizing part of what you said?
Yes, that is part of what I said.
Yeah.
Yes.
So one other question that just for Boulder County, could you talk about just really succinctly, what you guys do best, in your opinion, as a region to support this population, and what challenge you have that you are still pursuing the most?
Well, I think what we do best in our local area is the partnership piece. Also understanding the needs of our clients. Also, in terms of, we have a few partnerships. We have the Boulder County Business Partnership, which is a multi-sectored group. DVR, Workforce Boulder County, Economic Development, Chambers, Subcommittee Community College, and the school district. And we work together to identify and respond to the needs of, in particular, the business needs. But as we're responding to the business needs, we're also understanding what's happening within the school district and how do we build those pipelines for the future workers. So I think getting together, some of these things are in their beginning stages, but I think we're doing that well. And I'm excited to see where it goes in the future. We also, Laura, you're a part of the group that's been meeting, the Boulder's Road to Work program, which is another partnership that includes the nonprofit sector as well, to support, how do we figure out a way in which to serve high touch, medium touch, and low touch needs. And again, that's in the beginning phases, and I'm excited to see where that goes. I think Boulder County, we're very lucky because we have true center in Longmont that physically locates much of what HHS services, as well as forced care services, as well as public health or vehicle, and is not far from us as well. So having all of that, and services to veterans, of course, and having all of those things co-located is helpful. So I think it's the co-location piece, it's also the partnership piece, and we've also, in terms of the reduction in funding that we have experienced consecutive years, I think we've approached sure that we're actually meeting the humans where they're at when they come and meet with us. And we've designed a career coaching module for all of our staff that are front-facing, so that they're actually people that are at, direct them in a way that's a bit more person-centered and not program or service-centered, but and then more rapidly connecting them to their needs. So that's, and I think, what was the other part of the question, Laura?
I think you got to it well, and
Okay.
so let me kind of move to another one for everybody, and that is, and I'm going to modify this a little just based on our conversation, because the question on the screen reads, what policy and procedural changes do you believe might be made or has your region made in order to enrich and enhance this idea of supporting this population? And then how do employers and sectors fit into this? So I'm going to kind of make it a little more specific, because I think that the listeners might benefit. How are you all, there's 5 of you now, so just to kind of make it as like no more than like a minute, just because we want to hear from each one of you. How are you all doing, what's the best way to reach out to an employer on behalf of this population? What's the main trick or the main strategy, no more than a minute, that you've learned, so for the benefit of the audience? And Dawn, I'm going to start with you.
Okay, and I would say, you know, for Eastern, it's really been taking an individualized approach and doing very targeted and well-prepared job development. Our numbers are such that we're able to take a little bit more of an individualized approach, and knowing that not all systems are able to accommodate that. But I think an employer is a lot more approachable if we've got one particular and they're understanding that that individual is supported through the process. And work-based learning creates a great opportunity for us to place somebody out there and at least give a try. So that's kind of that first step towards self-sufficiency for a lot of folks, is just having a very cushioned launch into work.
Do you or one of your colleagues go with the person to meet an employer the first time around, or how do you typically do it?
You know, usually we provide outreach to the employer, talk a little bit about the individual, and then if we can garner some interest, then usually we have a site visit to take a look at, you know, what that position would be, how we can set it up as a work-based learning opportunity with salary, or if the employer is going to be paying salary, negotiate all that out, and then we're usually on site with that work-based learning person at least weekly to collect timesheets and just kind of make sure that they continue to be in a safe and supported environment.
Thank you. How about Ken? What do you guys specifically? You've mentioned employers a lot, but can you tell us just one really positive strategy that you've heard from your members that works in order to make direct contact with an employer?
Yes,
and to get someone hired in a positive way.
Oh, yes, actually.
No, just 1 minute, please.
Yes,
no,
yes.
Just talk 1 minute. Thanks.
Okay. So discussing competencies on the job, and looking at a job description, and then also having employers be flexible in the interviewing process. For example, limited English learners, you know, they're not going to interview well, so let's perhaps look at doing a job shadow for the interview process. And then the other thing is just looking at the hours. Is it really necessary for that person to be there at 8 o'clock on the nose? Or can we be more flexible and go, okay, can this position be 8:30 or even 9 o'clock? And do they have to end at 6, or can they end earlier? So the flexibility of employers and really getting an employer to look at that through that lens.
That's great. Thank you. Marcy, how about you?
Yep. I would agree with the work-based learning. In fact, we have recently created a work group called the Work-Based Learning Alliance Group, and that includes a lot of our partners, our community colleges, our school districts, and what they have put together is a menu of all the different work-based learning opportunities within our community, so that anybody that, job seeker that enters that needs that kind of assistance, can basically enter through no wrong door. And we have that menu for all of the partners and their frontline staff, so they know how to direct people to different kinds of learning opportunities.
That's great. So Sasha, what about you? What would you say is one of your best tricks or strategies you've heard from your team, or you've encouraged them to use in order to get someone connected to an employer that pays a good wage?
Yeah, I think that I agree with what's already been said. I think what we try to always do is make the best match for the individual. So we take a lot of time on the front end to really understand what are the barriers and skill sets of that participant and really understand what the employer is looking for and make that match. And we do a lot of prep work in terms of doing mock interviews and trying to address any barriers and set the expectation well with the employer, not so as to not set the participant up for failure. So I think the more prep work and legwork you could do on the front end, the participant's much more successful. And I think really pushing, and I know this was mentioned earlier, but really pushing our employers to pay a livable wage, understand what the great qualities our participants bring in terms of their skill sets and diversity, and then I think the more they have great participants, the more participants they want, and it just becomes a symbiotic relationship. So I think just having that rapport with the employers, but also that understanding of what the job seeker needs and what environments they will be successful in.
So, and then Erin, we're switching, sorry. So Erin, the question is, what's one trick, a quick answer, a minute or so, that you and your team have found for getting employers to really embrace the idea of hiring someone that has significant challenges that's been successful for Boulder?
I couldn't hear everybody else, but I would say that was a,
Can you understand?
I think really important.
Erin, we're having a little bit of a hard time hearing you. Do you mind speaking up a bit?
As workforce development professionals are responsible to understand what the job is, so that we're actually doing things up front with the job seeker to make sure that they're essentially prepared to a certain degree. So I think making sure we know both ends so that we're actually making a match. It's not necessarily guaranteed, but that we're providing support along the way so that we understand the job and we understand the essential, matching possibilities. So I think it's our responsibility to understand what the employer actually needs first, and then go back and look at our pool of applicants and look at the barriers and work with individuals to secure support so that they can actually enter and then potentially advance to the next job.
Thank you, Erin. So just two quick questions, and they're not quick, but we'll try and do them quick, that have come in is, one is, can each of you speak for like 30 seconds about how you coach people who have disabilities, or how you advocate with, and actually work with the person to get an accommodation at a job, if they need a accommodation under the American Disabilities Act? So specifics would be awesome. Marcy, do you have any specific coaching or tools that you use to help people advocate for an accommodation?
Well, because we have such a close relationship with our local DVR, and we have one co-located here, we work in partnership with them. And so that's usually a joint conversation between the actual job seeker who needs the accommodation and their WIOA coach, and then of course the DVR counselor that's here regularly.
Okay, so that gets handled by DVR at your place, right?
if they're involved with them. If not, then it's a coaching conversation between the job seeker that's working with a coach here, and then, you know, kind of a practice run and a role play. And if not, then particularly when it's an internship and we actually have contact on a regular basis with the employer, then that's sometimes just a conversation right at the employment site with the employer, the job seeker, and our coach that's working on the internship with them.
So would anyone add to that? Just, we're getting short on time, but is there anyone else that has a specific thing that you've found is valuable for getting an accommodation for your folks?
I think the one thing that we've done is our business development team has begun facilitating workshops for employees that are interested in what accommodations look like, you know, how simple they are and low cost they are. So they've been doing outreach and just true blue workshops with employers to ensure that as those requests come in, they don't make it more than it really is, and really understand what their role is in it and what the participants' role is it. So we've tried to educate, and again, similar to what Marcy said, we do partner with DDR, and their job developer is a part of those initiatives as well.
Thank you, Sasha. So this is going to be the last one, because this is one of those things where everything that can happen is, we have a fire drill right now that came out of nowhere. So if there's just a sec. Okay, so we're going to have to sign off now, but thank you so much, and so sorry, but we got pretty far along. I think we're within 5 minutes. So so if you go to the last screen, and you'll be able to access this. You can get any information you need from us by going to the CCLP online website. Thank you so much. Sorry to rush off. Okay, bye. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.